I seek to actively maintain my professional networks, and I would say that some of my mentors in the past wouldn't have shared my political views or my background or my thoughts on maybe gender or research or whatever. But certainly having people that challenge your thinking and bring you up when is required is really important.
In the first two episodes of our Unearthed Changemaker series, we discovered the value of perseverance, feedback, diplomacy and patience as high-impact tools for driving change in Australian agriculture and our rural communities. In this episode, we unearth two more Changemaker superpowers, that of connection and opportunity, the riches to be obtained from meaningful relationships with people who challenge our views, and from having the courage to challenge our own goals by diverting from the linear career trajectory. I'm Michael Thompson, and my guest in this one-on-one Changemaker conversation is Courtney Bailey. Courtney is the agriculture sector lead at Voconiq, a data science and community engagement company based in Brisbane, as well as the CEO for not-for-profit leadership development organisation Country to Canberra. Remarkably, both of those jobs were not even on Courtney's radar when she first contemplated a career in agriculture. So I started by asking Courtney for her reaction when she hears people describe a very clearly defined picture of exactly where they want to be in 5 years' time.
Oh, great question. I often think how unrealistic that is as an expectation. I personally have an experience where my career has been in no way linear. And I often think about the opportunities I would have missed if I was stuck to a specific career path with a specific career goal. I also probably feel a little bit jealous that people can map their lives out that way with such confidence.
So how important, particularly in your case, how important is it to try lots of different things when you're starting out your career?
Early career, and I think in particular for our volunteer team in Country to Canberra, really important that they can understand the different skill sets that are required in different parts of jobs and also try out a range of different things. One, later on in your career, it gives you a significant benefit because you've got this diversity of expertise. But two, you actually don't know what a job looks like until you're in it. So you make assumptions around specific different roles. What does something in comms and marketing feel like versus something in data analytics? And you actually don't know what it feels like until you're in it. So really important as a young person, in particular early career, that you try on different hats.
So to put all of this into some context, let's go back and run through your career path. So how does a young person from Byron Bay, and I mean an actual Byron Bay local, end up as the CEO of Country to Canberra and working for Voconiq?
Yeah, well, exactly that non-linear career pathway, I think, Michael, and taking advantage of the opportunities that are presented to you. I think, the pivotal point in my early career was actually attending school at Byron Bay High and working with my agriculture teacher at the time, a wonderful woman called Jennifer Woodward. I hadn't considered a career in agriculture before that, and certainly it wasn't a standard career pathway for people from Byron Bay at the time, but I was engaged in it and actively loved agriculture through the curriculum and through the way that my teacher explained and taught it. And so that sort of led me on a bit of a journey towards working in agriculture and with rural, regional, remote people. So I actually went to uni with the intention of being a vet, and that was at the advice of, career advisor. Getting specific grades in school certainly puts you in a box. I got to uni at UQ Gatton and hated studying vets. No hate to vets, just not for me. And
Just
again,
wasn't for
trying
you.
different
Yeah.
things, you've got to experiment. But what I did love was agribusiness. And so finished my degree in agribusiness and applied sciences at UQ Gatton and got a job with a commodity trading company actually based in Toowoomba with one of my lecturers. So again, a key role model that sort of shaped my pathway moving forward.
So those two role models, Jennifer Woodward, your high school teacher, and that university lecturer, I mean, there's good teachers and then there's special ones. What was it about those two people that really, sparked something within you to go down these paths?
It was probably a couple of things. The first was passion and interest. And so we say this a lot, I think, in the agriculture industry as well. Agriculture is kind of like a cult. Once you're in, you're in. And both Jennifer and Peter Wilson at the time were so heavily invested and passionate about agriculture and their space specifically within it that it was hard to not get on board, get on the bus and want to work with them. And also their level of knowledge and skills in industry was quite remarkable. And so they were definitely people that I wanted to learn from and work with.
But that wasn't the end of the career path, because you shifted gears again, didn't you?
I loved working with Peter and his offsider at the time, Hannah Avery, but then sort of wanted to move my interest to understanding a little bit more about consumers and global focuses, which was one of my passions during university. And so worked a little bit in international research for the Australian meat market during the time where exports in China were really exciting for us as an industry. That sort of landed me in the university environment and working with the student committees on assessing lecturers effectively. And I thought, again, I've had these two pivotal career moments that were shaped by excellent teachers. And so I engaged in a grad dip of education at the time, which then landed me at a school teaching agriculture, Ferny Grove State High. And so then I spent about 5 years in and out of agriculture teaching and the agriculture education space.
So you've gone full circle from being one of those students that knew nothing about ag to now giving back and exerting that same sort of passion and influence back on young people. Again, it's an interesting connection for where you have now ended up, but there was a step in between. You've undertaken a psychology degree as well.
Yeah, so again, I was working as a teacher at the time, and really, again, in ag, we know this to be true. We talk about this as 100% truth. The mantra that agriculture changes people, agriculture helps educate young people. But I was seeing it in person, right? So I was working with a lot of students that in other classes had been highly disengaged, had not really not really succeeded in a lot of areas, or were sort of having higher special needs. Uh, Put them in an ag classroom and the entire picture changes. Their literacy and numeracy outcomes increase, their engagement with school and class increases, their behavior improves. And so I really wanted to understand what it was about agriculture that improved the story of the student experience so that we could better advocate for agricultural education, which at the time was being sort of, I'd say, underfunded in the education system. So I completed my honours in psychology and sort of worked with understanding the drivers of education in the ag space specifically, but how to use that as an intervention for teachers.
So in terms of the how to use and how to extend that out into industry, how critical was that AgriFutures Horizons scholarship in building those connections and finding your voice?
Yeah, it was absolutely pivotal, and it was pivotal for a couple of reasons. First, I was a girl from Byron Bay working in agriculture education, but also living in the city. And so I felt quite highly disconnected to the industry in which I represented to a large number of people. And so the first was really connection back to industry and understanding the real stories that were occurring. And that I learnt from both my fellow scholars, but also from the experts that AgriFutures connected us with. The second pivotal point was that I met sort of my next mentor and teacher at the time, who was Dr. Kieran Moffat. He presented to us during one of our online sessions, and he worked in the space that I do now in Voconiq, so trust in rural industries. And I, again, felt really compelled by his passion and his attention to detail and really knowledge of the subject as a research psychologist. And that's sort of when I started, would happily say, professionally stalking Kieran to get a job at Voconiq because I knew it was where I wanted to work next.
But with that diverse background from agribusiness to ag teaching to psychology, now work with Voconiq, there's that role of your mentors and people guiding you, but also a theme of you assisting others and wanting to assist others. Is that what makes you tick?
Yeah, absolutely. And it is why I then engaged in Country to Canberra. And so I really deeply believe in the value of giving back and the value of community that, you know, being actively involved in a community does enrich somebody's life. And so, yeah, I seek to make decisions that are community oriented and helping others at every stage of my career.
And how important is it having a network of people with you, supporting you, and extending your level of reach?
I think part of the Horizon Scholarship taught me about those networks, but specifically how important not only a network of like minded people, but a network of different people are to making career decisions and also making decisions within your job that allows for growth. And so I seek to actively maintain my professional networks. And I would say that some of my mentors in the past wouldn't have shared my political views or my background or my thoughts on maybe gender or research or whatever. But certainly having people that challenge your thinking and bring you up when is required is really important. So, a diversity of mentors.
So that's a really important point to make in the context of Changemakers being all about how to exert influence and make change happen, and leadership skills. Because when the narrative around networking, often for young people, is it's almost like going back to the professional stalking, grabbing as many business cards as you can. Who can I get on my LinkedIn network? Yep, I've done networking. Tick. But it's unless though there's some depth in those conversations, it's meaningless exercise, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think without trust and a two-way benefit for these conversations, it really is just surface level number of people that you know on LinkedIn, and that is
It's
not
a
enough.
vanity metric, isn't it?
It is 100% a vanity metric and does not help you in your career really to expand your skill set.
So to put some context about how closely you have maintained those networks, some of them now volunteer with Country to Canberra, don't they?
Yeah, specifically the AgriFutures Horizon Scholar Group, I would say, have been really actively engaged in Country to Canberra as an organisation. So we've got two ex-scholars who are now part of our volunteer team and actively working with me to both enhance the impact of the organisation, but also grow their skills. So the first is Indiana Ryan. So she is excellent ag scholar that was working in ag education at the time and has come across into sort of our sponsorship grants, but also governance space. And the second one is Jara, who is an expert in communications and has really worked hard to expand her skill set under the guidance of mentors within our programs.
So for people who are unfamiliar with Country to Canberra, can you talk us through what it is and what does it do?
Country to Canberra is a volunteer led organisation that helps give women and non binary students expertise and experience in leadership. And so we do that by running a number of programs. Our main is Leadership Competition and Power Trip, which brings a number of students from Australian schools across from regional remote Australia into Canberra to learn about how to increase their leadership footprint, but also to learn the basic skill set that we as young women need to succeed in our own personal lives.
Why young women and non-binary people in particular? Why is that the focus of the initiative?
So originally it was because there was a problem and our founder, Hannah Wandell, sought to solve it, which was gender equity. And that was 11 years ago. And today it is still a prominent issue. So women from regional, rural, remote Australia still have problems with understanding financial literacy, for example. They still have barriers to enter the workplace and gain education. And so we're doing everything we possibly can to uplift those young people, not only so that they themselves can enhance their impact and professional skills and expertise, but also the young women in their areas. So hopefully having a ripple effect in rural, regional, remote communities.
Mm. So you talked about the power trip. What does that entail? Like, what sort of activities do these young people get to learn from?
It's excellent. Actually, it's a multi-day program that runs at University of Canberra, who is one of our sponsors. and is also funded by AgriFutures Australia. The young women get to engage in financial literacy training, training that expands their skill set in areas of emerging issue like AI. They do training on intersectionality, which is really understanding and giving empathy to people that have different backgrounds and understanding how your different backgrounds can create inherent disadvantage or advantage, depending on the way that you look at it. They also then get the opportunity to pitch ideas to our broader Country to Canberra audience at an open mic night, and then finally spend a day networking at a powerful women's breakfast with female leaders within Canberra and at Parliament House, where they meet a bunch of different politicians, both from their area and from federal government, and work to understand how the political system shapes the decisions that impact their community.
It's worth pointing out that it's not just the students who benefit from those experiences, but also your volunteers. You mentioned that relational dynamic of the give and take and the two-way street of things. How do the volunteers learn from the students?
Yeah, so honestly, the list is probably longer than I could describe, Michael, but one, it is just in remembering what passion looks like when you're young. So I think a lot of the volunteers walk away and really just remember what it was like to have a passion and to really doggedly work at it. And I think that's inspiring for everyone, no matter what age group you are. But also, our volunteers go through an extensive period of mentoring and training so that they can work in roles within our organization that are above their current level. So it helps them break effectively the glass ceiling and the gendered ceiling that exists in their relevant industry today. So they get to sort of learn about skills that they would only gather at an executive level in a company too.
As a relatively young CEO, what have been some of the lessons that you've learned the hard way in trying to break that glass ceiling and that you then share with those students and volunteers alike?
Yeah, I think the main thing that I've had to learn about is boundaries, right? And so somebody that will naturally give to an organization because there's a core purpose, and especially somebody that's got a background as a teacher, right? So I come from a background where care and compassion are the main drivers for my behavior. It is incredibly difficult to balance the job of a CEO with the job of a lead of a research program at another company. So I'm working in multiple jobs, full time, pretty much in both. So the ability to set boundaries and be really clear on those boundaries has been probably my key learning since taking up the role of CEO at Country to Canberra, but also understanding why I'm putting those boundaries in place and being able to explain that clearly to people like my volunteer team. Um, I'm very clear on not building resentment for activities that I'm doing. And so, yeah, a real understanding about my behavior has been critical. Also, modeling that behavior for my volunteers, because we know running volunteer led organizations, there is a huge risk of both volunteer burnout and churn. And so we want to be making sure that we're modeling a behavior that allows volunteers to get the experience they want, have an impact, and not burn out or lose their job in the process. Is really tricky balance. And we're still sort of trying to figure that out today.
So you mentioned about care and compassion being uh, the values that drive you and influence the way that you behave as a leader. But for a lot of new and young leaders, the model of leadership that they know is from what they've seen on TV. This command and control, direct issue orders, and that can have some really negative consequences in the workplace. You got some good advice on style of leadership very early on during that Horizon Scholarship, didn't you? Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was unfortunately the COVID year, or maybe fortunately, of the Horizon Scholars. So we did a lot of online sessions. One of the particular speakers, Margot Andre, so CEO of APL, she really talked in her sessions about the value of being an authentic leader and coming to the table as yourself. And I think that's been really reinforced during my time as an Australian Rural Leadership Foundation mentee, and also again as a National Farmers Federation Diversity and Ag Leadership Scholar. So in those, I've also had the opportunity to be mentored by some amazing people, in particular Katie McRobert from Australian Farm Institute. And I think she again has really emphasized that point about what does authentic leadership look like, and how do you bring yourself to the table rather than pretending to be some big, burly, powerful leader? I think as women in particular, we often get demonized for certain types of behavior. And so coming to the table with a style of what we would say as a traditional male CEO is probably never going to work for us anyway. But also, if leadership is about building trust and about building reciprocal benefit for yourself and your team, coming in as something else is never going to build that trust in the first instance.
You mentioned burnout before for your volunteers, and you also mentioned that you're basically doing two full-time jobs. There is a saying that if you want something done, ask a busy person. How do you juggle all of that? How do you not burn out when you're quite mindful of your volunteers burning out?
Oh, look, I don't think there's a recipe for success other than having a very, very supportive workplace culture, both in my job at Voconiq and within country to Canberra. And so, one, my calendar is crazy, but two, I make sure in that crazy calendar there is time off for the things that matter to me and build me up. But two, I do have a really open and honest relationship with both my CEO at Voconiq, Kieran, and my chair at Country to Canberra, and giving yourself the permission to not do work on a day or to not do something is just as important as scheduling things in. And so, ongoing conversation, ongoing professional development for me, I think.
But that all comes back to that culture, and that relationship comes back to that authenticity and the genuine connection and authenticity of self, doesn't it? You're not going to get that if you're faking it.
No, no, absolutely not. And you're going to burn out, frankly. If you're pretending to be something you're not, that takes effort and energy. You're going to burn out.
That's great that you've got a great support network of mentors and a really lovely workplace culture, supportive culture. Because for a lot of leaders, and particularly young leaders, leadership can be a very lonely place, can't it? Because you don't have someone sitting at the desk next to you that you can have a bit of a moan and a groan to about how the boss is behaving or the workload that you've got to deal with. Did you go about getting those mentors deliberately, or have you just been really, really lucky?
Originally, I would say luck and just, I think, to my comment about nonlinear careers, just a real passion for saying yes, probably too much in the original instance. But now I'm certainly looking actively and engaging actively with people that I can talk about these issues in a confidential way with. You're right, stepping into a leadership position, and it's something they don't really tell you when you're looking up to leaders, is hard because all of a sudden you aren't friends, you are responsible for somebody's personal life. And so the whether or not you like the idea, the power imbalance does shift, and you do need to be very conscious of that in everything you do.
That balance, though, that fine line between burnout, saying yes to everything, saying no, learning to say no to some things. What is the difference for you now, having learnt those lessons of saying, hell yes, I'm going to do this versus, oh, yeah, 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 you know?
Yeah. It's the tangible feeling, right? You know when the hell yes is there, and when the hell yes is there, I'm absolutely going to do it. I know myself, if I'm lukewarm but slightly interested in something, I'm probably likely to resent that decision later, and so it would not benefit me or anybody around me to say yes to that thing. Of course, in leadership, there's things that you have to do. Budgets are probably a great example of something that I'm not a strong hell yes about.
It takes a special person to love a spreadsheet, doesn't it?
There's people, and so you surround yourself with excellent people that love spreadsheets, so you don't have to do them as much. But you do have to understand them as a leader and understand the implications of a spreadsheet that doesn't look so good. And so I'm hell yes to the vision, but hell no to some of the groundwork. And I've got excellent people that can help me with that as well.
So you've come a long way from a non-ag person in Byron Bay to having learnt so much and have a few different forks along the road where you've taken, deviated from the linear. Where to next?
Gee, it's a big question, especially because I know Kieran's probably going to be listening. Uh, Where to next for me, I think, is making sure that Country to Canberra is really set up as an organisation for continued growth and impact in the regions. And so, we're really setting our strategic plan for the next 3 years and engaging with different types of funders to ensure that we can continue to have impact into the future. I think the core thing for me, though, is that the work I'm doing at Voconiq in understanding trust and understanding workforce continues to have impact and will continue to grow into the future as well. And so the ability to flex my leadership muscles in that space is also very attractive to me, and I think will help the industry long term.
That long-term thinking, what change are you really trying to deliver for Australian agriculture in that long-term vision of your career?
I think it will be continuing the work from my original psychology degree, which is really to continue to understand better the impact of agriculture, whether that's living in, working in, or learning from, on the broader Australian community, and how we can use that information to improve the agricultural programs that we currently have. We have a number of excellent, for example, agriculture education programs, but how do we leverage the successes of those to improve impact and to improve the relationship that we as an industry have with our external community? And that's what I'm really looking to do into the future.
Well, Courtney, I can't wait to see where it all leads and the change that you do deliver. Thank you very much for joining us on Changemakers. Really enjoyed having the conversation.
Thanks, Michael. It's been a pleasure.
That was Courtney Bailey, CEO of Country to Canberra, Agriculture Sector Lead at Voconiq and 2020 AgriFutures Horizons Scholar. Next time on Unearthed Changemakers, we head to the New South Wales Riverina to meet another super busy and super impressive person in Lisa Anderson. Farmer, former lawyer, and now a director on multiple boards, she puts much of her success down to a 2021 AgriFutures Scholarship to undertake the Australian Rural Leadership Program. With such extensive and broad experience, it'll be great to hear the insights Lisa shares from her time in building team cultures to drive change in sectors as diverse as livestock, broadacre grains, and even the pasture seeds industry. That's next time on our special Unearthed Summer series of one-on-one conversations with the changemakers of Australian agriculture. A podcast brought to you by AgriFutures Australia.